All good. Welcome all, and thank you for attending this meeting of the Droitwich Planning Committee on Monday, the 12th of June. We will start, please, with apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, there's 6. Councillors Chris and Eric Bowden, Councillor Sinton, Grady, Hopkins, and Mrs. Chantry.
Thank you, and I believe that leaves us all accounted for. So we'll go next on to declarations of interest. Councillor Davidson.
Mr. Chairman, up until about 10 years ago, I had a pecuniary interest in some of the land behind 67 High Street, but that no longer exists. But people might think I have.
Okay, thank you for that. This brings us next on to item 3, to note the membership and chairmanship of the committee as determined on the annual council meeting on the 15th of May. The details are attached and are always attached on the agendas for each committee. Next, we go on to item 4, confirming as a correct record the minutes of the meeting of the committee held on the 3rd of April, which I'm glad to see some were there, but obviously we've got some new faces. So could we have, well, I'm happy that those were correct and happy to propose those. Could we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Brooks. Could we have all those in favour? So any who are on the committee, any against or any abstentions? Wonderful. This is me trying to remember who's on the committee this time. Next, we go on to item 5A, the planning committee, the planning applications, which are on the schedule that were attached to the agenda. Let's find them on mine. So, being devoid of a meeting for a while, we do have quite a few that I believe have already been delegated.
Yeah, there's a couple that are already approved. They're marked on the schedule, Chairman. I've got the valid and the end dates for them all. So unless they're marked, they were still open as of Friday. So it may, even though it's gone over the date, it still will enable, hopefully, the comment to go on.
So we start with 26 Moreland Road, Droitwich Spa. It's an application for a carport by Mr. R. Mosley. Have we had anything on the planning portal for this?
Thanks, Chairman. The valid date on this one's a while ago, it's 23rd of March, end date was 22nd of April, it's still open, it's delegated. There are no neighbours replies at all on it, just 2 statutories, which are highways, no objection, and drainage from which again is all fine.
So not causing a great stir. Would any members in the room like to make any comment on this one? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'd just comment that it looks fine to me. It's adjacent to the road, so it's not overshadowing neighbours and so forth. So I'm quite happy to recommend approval.
With no great issues, I'm quite happy to second. Can we have all those in favour? Thank you. Next, we go on to 38 King George Avenue, a single-storey side, front and rear extension and widen of access by extending a dropped curb, a variation on the application as noted. Have we had anything on the portal for this one?
Again, similar to the last one, Chairman, nothing from neighbours at all. 4 replies, they're all statutories, no issues with Worcester Regulatory Services, so no adverse comments at all on that. The county council one is fine for highways, but there's no compelling objection. But all they're asking, and it's conditional actually, is that the vehicular access is in place before occupancy to that. That's what they're saying. That was the comment. Just on that one.
The conditions, one being the development hereby approved shall not be occupied until the vehicular access, entrance and parking area have been provided as shown on drawing block plan. This is to ensure conformity with the submitted details. So I think that's quite a reasonable condition as they go. Would any members like to comment on this? If not, I'm happy to move for approval. Councillor Brooks.
Happy to second, Chairman.
Thank you. Could we have all those in favour? Wonderful. This brings us next on to 18 Jackdaw Lane.
That's approved, Chairman.
This being already approved, if everyone's happy and not wanting to make a comment, we'll move on to the next, being land to the rear of 67 High Street for redevelopment of car wash sites to include cover to existing car wash and the creation of 6 shop units and cafeteria and the demolition of existing valet store building. Have we had anything on the portal for this one?
There's a lot, Chairman, on this one. If I may, I'll summarise it for the committee. There's 9 neighbours' responses and 14 statutories. Of the neighbours' ones, first one is actually a solicitor acting for the proprietor of 67 High Street. What they're objecting to, there's a right-of-way covenant for the rear access, which the shop owner has had for approximately 45 years, so they're taking that forward. Various comments from adjacent businesses to do with parking. I think there's a gym on Queen Street. They've got concerns about car parking for their business being compromised. Waitrose put in a concern rather than an objection, and this is to do with their delivery cycle. So they have articulated lorries delivering 24 hours, 7 days a week. So they want more information as to what provision in the proposals has been made that will not be disrupted. There's some tenanted properties, 73 High Street, so they're accessible from the rear of the High Street, so in the area of the existing car wash area and the car park. So they've expressed concerns about the construction phase and also reduction in parking and access for those tenanted properties. There's another company that's acting for the proprietor of 67, similar to the solicitor. It could be another solicitor, it's not clear from the objection, but it's the same concerns regarding overdevelopment and access over rights of way. And then there are 2 from existing high street takeaway businesses, 2 different ones, and one's expressed an objection regarding access, and the other one has on commercial competition. So Councillor Brooks did touch on that earlier in his presentation. That isn't unfortunately, it's free enterprise for different businesses. So that one is not a valid reason, but there is some strong concern there. Moving on to the statutories, the Environment Agency, they've just done standing advice to the local planning authority, so in this case Wychavon. What they're asking for there is to look at the principles for development in flood zone 3, because that's with the proximity to the main river, so that being River Solwap in this case across the way. That's an advice note to Wychavon. WRS, there's a few things on that. That's Worcester Regulatory Services, so they're looking at potential land contamination. That's due to the proposal being quite near the old canal basin, and also landfill gas. The checks for that would be mandatory because of the history there of the land. They've asked for a submission of plants for ventilation and external operations. So this is things like air conditioning plant. That's not clear from the proposals that have been put in by the developer at this stage. So that will be things like noise and nuisance for neighbouring properties. They've asked for more information there. The drainage from Wychavon is fairly standard. That's not an objection. That looks to be in order at the moment. The Civic Society, they put strong and detailed objections in, and linked to that, the heritage consultation, so that's the Wychavon Heritage Officer, they've actually recommended refusal as it is detrimental to the heritage assets of Droitwich Spa within the conservation area. So the site is within the conservation area is the key thing there. And that's by virtue of scale, orientation, massing, design and materials proposed. So really that accords with a lot of the Civic Society's own concerns. Severn Trent, they've no objection. Highways, Interestingly, with highways, they've asked for a deferment because there's inadequate details available for footway provision across the development. And Canals and Rivers, no response. No comments is their response, so they've got no overriding concerns. And Historic England, their advice to which Avon is to consider a specialist conservation and archaeological expert for referral advice, and that's because of the proximity to the Barnes Park and the historic use of the land there. So it's the conservation officer's recommendation that's a key thing to consider. And that's it, that's all.
So it would be a great change, well, a big change to a heavily conserved area, and quite a large development with quite a lot of, quite a lack of detail around both pedestrian and vehicular access. Would any members like to make any additional comments on this or raise any opinions? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. I'll just, if I may, read one other excerpt from the Conservation Officer's report, which says, such a building would have a significant and detrimental impact upon the setting of the high street properties and the conservation area in this locality, being overly high and overly large in scale due to the significant increase in footprint. And in fact, it goes on to the excerpt that Mark could refer to a little bit earlier, but I think for me that sums up the view on that one, and I'm certainly would propose that we suggest refusal.
I think quite right. I think.
Can I also say, yeah, I've had several people approach me, including one shop owner. I'm not sure about the others, but one does own their own shop, and they're concerned about the deliveries. Obviously, you've said that, but again, solicitors involved, so it's 2 or 3 different people have caught me on the way through, if you like. So I totally agree with what you just said.
As this was my grandfather's shop site, I'm aware that there were no high buildings on that site. There were some old sheds and things like that, but nothing high. Another thing that there might possibly be, and I'm sure this will be covered, is there might be an old brine pit somewhere down there. That's what I can say to my knowledge from the past.
Indeed. So I think we've obviously we can't take into account worries about competition, but I think that many shops on a site surrounded by a lot of shops anyway, a lot of retail and business units, would definitely seem like quite an overdevelopment of that site to me. I think I'll be quite happy to second Bob's recommendation for refusal, adding in recommendation for refusal on overdevelopment due to the an unneeded increase in retail units, with so many retail units surrounding it, especially vacant ones. If there's no other recommendations people would like to make, we've had a proposer and a seconder, so can I have all those in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you. And this brings us next on to 227 Worcester Road, ground floor, side and rear extension and attic conversion. Was there much on the portal for this?
Very little on this one, Chairman. No neighbours replies at all, and then just statutories from WRS Highways and Drainage, which Avon, no objection on any of those, all satisfactory.
Grand. Would anyone like to make a comment on this one, or has anyone got any great reasons for refusal? In that case, I'm quite happy to propose this one for recommendation. I'll recommend this one for approval. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Brooks.
I'd be happy to say, Chairman, because again, there seems ample room for this development on that site, so I can't see any problem with it.
Wonderful. Could we have all those in favour? The next one being Woodland Nursery, being already approved. So unless anyone wants to add any objections to that one, or any comments to that one even, sorry, we go next onto 90 Cockshoot Hill for a single-storey rear extension. Has there been anything on the portal for this?
The only thing on this one is really just an objection from the neighbour about access. It's a shared drive, and they've said they don't consent to any ingress by the contractors on their side. So it's just a disagreement between the neighbours, I think, there, but they haven't objected to the actual proposal. In terms of statutories, they're all fine. The drainage is adequate. There's no issue with highways, because it's a rear extension anyway. So that's it. It's just a note of the neighbours' concern.
Okay. Would anyone like to add anything to this one? I fear there's no great reason for refusal, but it sounds it's perfectly within the neighbours' rights to withhold access to their bit of shared property as well. So with no reasons for refusal, I'm happy to put this one for approval. Could I have a seconder? Councillor Fellows. All those in favour?
Thank you.
This brings us next on to 17 Lawley Way for a detached garage conversion to a gym, including the addition of a bifold doors, front external door and internal partitioning. Have we had much on the portal for this?
Very little again, Chairman, on this one. No neighbours' concerns at all. Everything else is fine. The only point to note was highways. They asked to qualify with the applicant the vehicular traffic and parking impact for the proposal. What that's for, it originally started as a change of use for a part-time yoga business prior to this application for the detached conversion. So they've satisfied that concern, so there's no issues. There's just the amount of people calling it a property, would it be in a residential road?
Parking always being of a great concern. But it's nice to see a business growing, and especially if it's been growing and there's been no great issues with the neighbours, it's a good sign for its growth going forwards. Would anyone like to make a comment on this one? Failing that, I'm happy to propose approval for a business growing that doesn't seem to have had any issues with neighbours previously. Could I have a seconder? Thank you. Could we have all those in favour? Wonderful. This brings us next on to 22 Alexander Avenue, the single-storey side extension to dwelling. Has there been much on the planning portal for this?
No neighbours' responses at all. It's been valid for a while as well, so that's positive. The only stipulation was WRS, and what they've asked for is a search for potential contaminated land because it's near former gravel pits, which again is fairly standard. Well, they've asked for that to be stipulated as conditional. That's it. So that could be noted and support.
Sounds wise. Is there anything anyone would like to add to this one? I propose that we recommend approval in accordance with the officer's recommendations. Could I have a seconder? Thank you. Could we have all those in favour?
Thanks.
Grand. This brings us next on to 1 Fox Hunter Close for a change of use to a residential garden area. Could we have any items from the portal on this one?
These last two applications, Chairman, are fairly recent, so there's nothing showing at all on the portal for this one.
Okie doke.
It was valid 16th of May, so it's been on a few weeks, close as the 23rd of June.
So it's had a bit of time, and I can't imagine it being too contentious. But would anyone like to? Yes.
I think from looking at it that there's some land that doesn't belong to anybody alongside, and that's about all I can say really. But they, I think, want to use it as a garden, possibly.
Which does happen sometimes. We've seen small patches of verge and things being adopted into gardens as well. Not usually, well, not that I've ever seen causing a problem. So if we're all happy with this one, I can't see there being any issues. Councillor Brooks.
Just a comment, because I didn't quite understand this one when I was looking at it, quite frankly. But obviously, if the land is not in the ownership of the applicant and he hasn't served notice on the owner, then in actual fact the application wouldn't be valid. So I don't know whether it's worth putting a rider on just saying that the ownership issue ought to be addressed. Because it looked to me like it might even be county council land, since it was adjacent to the road. So I think that whilst I have no objection in principle, we ought to put some kind of flag up that for ownership to be clarified.
I think that's quite wise. As some may know, anyone can put in a planning application on public land, and it could still pass, but they would then need to sort out, better to do it before, but would then need to sort out ownership.
That's fine, yeah.
So if we're all happy with that, are you happy proposing that, Bob?
Yes.
Wonderful. I'm happy to second that. Could we have all those in favour? Thank you. This takes us next on to 1 St Peter's Road for a single-storey side and rear extension. Have we had much on the application for this one?
There's nothing on this one, Chairman. It's valid on the 5th of June, closes on the 26th. No replies.
Wonderful. Would anyone like to make any comments on this one? Councillor Brooks.
Thank you, Chairman. Two things. First of all, it looked to me that the proposed development was very much in keeping with the existing buildings and materials that didn't seem appropriate. And it also looked that there was sufficient room on the site that wasn't sort of being squeezed on. So I'd be quite happy to propose recommending approval.
Grand. Would anyone care to second before I do? Wonderful. Thank you very much. All those in favour?
Thank you.
Grand. This brings us on to our next page.
Just the amended ones.
That's it. Those are 30C onwards. Oh, or is that the previous page? It's in the previous committee. That'll be one. This brings us next on to 5B, being amended planning applications, all of which are written. And these are for noting, unless anyone wants to add any particular comments to them.
The third one, Chairman's already approved. The fourth one we've just commented on, which was the Lawley Way garage doors. So these are just updates or amended details that have gone in after the main application.
So hopefully you all have read these, and unless there's any comments, we'll go on to item 6, being decisions of the local planning authority. Starting with approval notices, Bridgehaven District Council having issued 5 approval notices since the last Town Council Planning Committee meeting on the 3rd of April. Of these, 4 did accord with recommendations of the Town Council, and 1 did not. Of refusal notices, Bridgehaven has issued no refusal notices since the last Town Council Planning Committee. Bringing us on to item 7, being a notification of a withdrawal of planning application, Bridgehaven District Council having been notified on the 31st of May that planning application is listed for the development of the 100 new dwellings on the field off Tagwell Road that we spoke about in the planning training earlier, has been withdrawn. So those who were in agreement in our last administration that it wasn't an appropriate place to put 100 dwellings will probably be quite happy with me there. This brings us.
So items 8 to 16, Chairman, road traffic orders. Some of them are quite historic because it's about long, obviously, since early April. So unless members have got any particular questions, you may want to take those on block as well.
So hopefully you all have read through the agenda and seen that the next 8 items from 8 till 16 are road traffic notifications, many having already been through because of the period devoid of meetings. So unless anyone's got any particular questions or comments to make on these, I'm going to propose that we take these as read en bloc, these being for information. Don't believe we need a vote on that.
No, it's just a note. They're just a note.
So just for noting. So if all are happy with those, I'd like to thank you all for attending this first planning meeting back under the new administration. And I'll hand over to our next committee chair. Thank you. No worries.
I've got the option to go 8 to 16, let's just pass it.
It doesn't make for a speaking meeting. How it is. Better than myself. It's a strange one, there's no soreness to it, so I think it's just croaked and broken. Bruised and croaked, that was what's going on. Yes.
You sound like I did yesterday. And I was too much confused to see him on Saturday night.
Mine was from the same.
Yes.
Where were you singing?
Working Men's Club, the fans of the members of was there. And I thought it was a really good idea, he said, we should do a couple of AC/DC songs.
Wow,
Jim
excellent.
Watson was a.
Wow.
Quite loudly as well, so.
With ACDC, you've
Yeah.
got to pull that into it.
Oh, look at there.
Yeah, I'm not sure it's appropriate for this setting.
That's what
I think mine was lost mainly to Miss Alfred Stephen. I didn't know with ACDC as well. What was the band? I think I recognise the name, but I don't think I've seen them anywhere.
We used to live next door to Brighton, not the land, so, if you're trying to see it's great music, but every time. We were away, so. Something else on.
One of those where the schedule was not quite worked out.
Absolutely.
But it sounds like you made a good first show to see.
Yes. Certainly a lot of dancing and singing.
Should stop idle chat. Unless it was interesting. Yeah, I like this building, that's really good. Very talented as an individual. Evening everyone, welcome to Community and Amenities. It shouldn't be me, I'm the Vice Chair, but I'm chairing this evening because our respected Chair is on holiday. So you got me. And we've got a long agenda because it's the first one since the election. So bear with me, please. So first thing is apologies for absence.
Yes, Chairman, councillors Chris and Eric Bowden, councillor Sinton, Grady,
And Uncle Kentucky, yeah. Declarations of interest. I've got one which is the coronation. Can't remember which number it is now. Coronation Fund is 16. It's my street, benefited from it. To note membership, this is item 3, to note membership and chairmanship of the committee as determined at the annual council meeting, details at the back. So remember, if we do need to vote, it's unusual on C&A totally, but if we do, then the people to vote are Councillor Bowden, Councillor Davidson, myself, Councillor Eric Bowden, Councillor Brazier, Councillor Clements, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Humphreys, and Councillor Fellows. But of course, everyone can raise their hand and join the discussions if need be. That's not an issue. Welcome to new members. I'm sure you will enjoy Town Council, but I'm sure you will also enjoy C&A. It's a very effective and fun committee. It gives an awful lot to the community, I believe. So we will welcome your support. 4, to note membership and chairmanship of the Grants Appraisal Committee. That is included as well. To note membership and chairmanship, this is item 5, of the working group of the C&A Committee designated for the Christmas lights contract procurement and other procurements. 6, to confirm correct the minutes of the meeting held on the 27th of February. Who have we got that we can call upon for that? I'm happy to move. Councillor Duffy second. All in favour? Thank you. Now we're moving on to effectively the items for this committee. So it's item 7, C&A Grant Scheme, to consider recommendations to the Grants Appraisal Committee, which held its first meeting on the 5th of June. And you'll see attached the grants that were discussed. There were 3 that were discussed in total, and we agreed with all 3, but 2 with commitment to pay now, which was Druitt Spa Food Festival and the History and Archaeology Society. The number 2 there, Vincent de Paul Society, which is the new bereavement cafe. We've agreed in principle, but we've asked the organiser to come and speak at the 3rd of July to just give a little more information about the bereavement cafe, how it's organised, how it's funded, and how it will operate. You may have seen posters going around already advertising it. It's going to be held at Rotary House, but we've just asked for a little more detail, and then we're quite happy we've agreed the grant to support it.
Chairman, they've confirmed they'll come on the 3rd of July. I'll be pleased to update.
Thank you. So moving to item 8. Sorry, is there another point?
With that one, we just need all in favour and committed, because it's recommended by the working group.
Okay. So yeah, just on the bereavement cafe, we just need agreement from the C&A Committee.
Sorry,
All 3. Okay.
Yeah.
So all 3, we need to rubber stamp that you will support the Grant Appraisal Committee recommendation for those grants. So I'm happy to propose.
I'm happy to second.
Councillor Duffy second. All in favour? Excellent. Thank you.
That has 2,500.
Yeah, there are still grant money available, so if you know of any local good causes, then they can phone into the Town Council, get the required forms and submit an application. So please promote the fact that Town Council gives grants and we can support where necessary. Item 8, Christmas lights contract, renewal and procurement 2023. So I said that we've had to agree as well, the working group for procurement. They have met and they've made a recommendation this evening on the Christmas light contract, and I'll pass to the Town Clerk just to run through.
Chairman. Yes, the group met last Monday. We did full procurement on the .gov website. There's a procurement website recommended for local councils. So we actually booked an advert for the opportunity on the 31st of March out, because we're conscious obviously with the delays with the election, it was better to have a longer period. That closed on the 22nd of May. We had 6 expressions of interest received, which was really encouraging. And we had 3 sealed bids, which were presented and opened in front of the committee, the working group of the committee last Monday. And of those, the recommendation is to award the contract to Festive Lighting, which is the existing provider. That will be ratified by full council as well next week, and then we will formalise that with all interested parties. It's for a 5-year renewal. We had 2 very strong sale bids to consider, and one that was good as well. And they were scored on a scale of various criteria last week.
Okay, and we have worked with Festival Lighting, but they're going to refresh some of the...
It's a brand new scheme, brand new actual motifs and some new designs in there as well.
Excellent. Okay, well, we trust the working group have done their job. We'll have to take a vote, yes?
Yeah, please, like the grants, if we can just...
Yeah, so I'm comfortable to recommend the working group activity there, so I'm happy to move. Any seconder? Councillor Clement, all in favour?
Thank you.
And it will now go on to council as well.
Next week. Yeah. Because it's a full contract, it has to be ratified by full council as well, which we can do next week.
And as Mark said previously, if anyone wants to look at the details, there's a brochure here that you can look through to see the recommended way forward. Number 9 is War Memorial, and I think we've seen the work that's been going on around the War Memorial to change the kind of bedding for the plants. That was required work. It's now been completed. It looks really good. The uneven paving and works, and now we're looking. We've planted it's all done and planted up, and you can see that county highways are now looking at possibly repaving the square later on. So it will enhance that whole area of Victoria Square. So that's for noting. Any comments? No. 10, Heritage Way Community Planters. Now, if I'm right, this is the kind of bluey one that's by the Heritage.
Yeah, on the corner.
Yeah.
On the community hall.
I think initially it was the Air Cadets that took that and planted it. Then it went to Westacre, but it's just had a problem on the way, I guess, with maintaining it and doing it. And it's great to see that between the Town Council and our contractor that they've been looking after it and put some work to it. So the arrangements have now been consolidated with Westacre, and hopefully they will get back into maintaining that area as a community offer to the town in a way, I think, from Westacre. That's how they saw it. It was their kind of allocation of land in the centre of the town that they could take ownership of and look after.
We're due to plant it this week, Chairman, I think, the children.
Brilliant. 11, Spring Meadow Doorstep Green. Okay, I will pass to you on that one, Mark. Oh, this is with the kind support of Councillor Brooks with his divisional fund. So we're trying to enhance the entrance there.
Yes, the entrance near the precinct where the mini Tesco is. It's subject to washout, but it's on a gradient, the gravel. So it's to improve that aspect, and it's also opposite the new nursing home. So if we can do a sealed, nice surface with brick-edged entranceway there, just make it more appealing and more suitable for access for all, really.
Yeah.
So Council Brooks has given us some divisional contribution there. We hope to do that work anytime. That'll stop that flood and that washout situation as well with heavy rain.
Brilliant. That will help the area. Item 12 is Copcup Park and tree height reduction. Unfortunately, there's been some vandalism this weekend within Copcup Park, so we need to, well, we do maintain it, but we have a maintenance programme, but this will add to that as well. So I'll pass to you again.
Thank you, Chairman. This one, there is quite a detailed report on this. It's to do with some hedging next to the BP garage, height reduction. So it's quite a big job there. What's happened is that it is Town Council hedging, owned and maintained, and it abuts Colford Walk, which is one of the main footpaths of traversers, Droitwich, in that area. So when it's been sided out, it promotes growth in the height. So we've had an inquiry from residents living on Pelham during the election to Councillor Grady, was one inquiry, to reduce the height of the hedge because it's now out of proportion with the environment. So it's causing a big shadowing effect to gardens. So we can do this work as part of the land maintenance allocated budget. It was just the scale of the job really to report it. I've managed to book the tree surgeon for a week in early July to do that. So that's after the bird nesting season. And we've also had some tree canopy requests to be reduced at the back of Lawn Drive, which is the other part of the park. So when the mature trees, they're growing prolifically, so we can probably, subject to assessment, get both sets of work done at the same time, whilst we've got access platforms and things, and that will just deal with it within land maintenance budget this year. So there's a detailed report, but it's just if members have got any questions on it.
Okay, that sounds all good. And continued maintenance. Excellent. 13 of similar nature is Spring Meadow Doorstep Green. This is the boundary to the properties.
This is behind Tesco's.
Yeah.
That fence there.
Okay.
So with the change in administration, it was really outstanding work that's been completed in the period of the election. So that's now done.
It's done.
And that completes all of those boundary lines from there.
Brilliant. Okay. Moving to 14, COVID-19 pandemic memorial bench. This was an idea from Alan Humphries. So we thank Alan for bringing it forward. You will have seen it, it's out the front, isn't it? So great in that sense that it's now been inscribed and it's in front of St Richard's House for anybody who wants to pay their respects to anybody who's been affected by COVID-19 in any way. Councillor Val Humphries.
Just wanted to ask if there's going to be a formal unveiling of the bench at any point.
We haven't planned one. We haven't planned one, but it would be good just to recognise it in some way. Yeah. I don't think we have to go overboard, but just something with due respect, just to explain it's there and to what purpose it can be used.
No, because I haven't seen any publicity about it, although I might not look at all the news.
Yeah. I think probably for the new administration as well, it will help if we, even if it's just before a council meeting, just go and
That's fine.
mention it and talk about it. And we could invite Alan along. 15, visit Droitwich Spa tourism website. And if you've not had the opportunity to go into Visit Droitwich Spa website, I urge you to do so. It's a very good website. So there's a new page being recently added with information by Uncover Britain. So the link is in the notes, but I would urge you to go and do that. It's very good. And it has information on for the Salt King. 16, I did put a declaration of interest, coronation funding. I think it's excellent that we were able to support 20 different community events to mark the coronation. And thank you to all who were involved with the town council event in the Lido. I thought that was a terrific event as well to mark the occasion. But I know from my involvement, those that did receive were really appreciative and were able to mark the occasion very well. So hopefully you were benefited as well in some way, but that was good. That was whichever money that came through to the town council that was utilised in that way. 7, West Midlands Mayor's Community Weekend. So this is a similar funding in some ways to the coronation weekend, or that we can utilise the money in a similar way as the Mayor's Community Weekend. It's to support volunteers and engagement with communities. And you'll see 3/4 of the way down that the recommendation is that we do something similar to the coronation picnic in the park, effectively, with a similar one in Lido Park on the 10th of September. And I would imagine that's again utilising the local community groups and trying to give a kind of window of the good things that happen in our community within the park. So, I don't know if anyone's got any comments on that. I certainly think, as I said, it was a great event for the coronation party, but I think it's worthwhile doing again to try and take advantage of the money that is available.
That bit's gone in, Chairman, so we should hear any day whether that's been granted. I would hope it would be, because it certainly fit the criteria for it. So that would be £2,000. And the suggestion to do a similar thing in the Lido Park is that it coincides with the bands in the park. It's the second to the last one of the season, so it's guaranteed to have a lot of public interest.
Have some football.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. 18, Droitwich in Bloom Trail and summer activities. This is an initiative by Wychavon, but with the town council support. They trialled a Droitwich in Bloom last year. They've developed it a little this year, and the hope in the future is that it would be even a bigger event. But this time you will have seen, possibly in the Lido Park, the rainbow again over a bench, and the festoon of flowers around the bandstand. There's one down in Vines Park as well. two down in Vines Park, and there's a couple in the St Andrews Centre. So it's, the idea of it is to try and engage youngsters. They can get a pack and then follow the trail around and show that they've actually walked around Droitwich and know Droitwich. Try and get the coffee shops and pubs involved as well, to try and get more activity in the town as well as making it pleasure. They rely a lot on social media, so the idea is to take pictures, Instagram or Facebook, and try and promote Droitwich in that way. So it's building momentum, and I think that's the idea. Things start small and hopefully it'll build over the years into something that's really important. 19 weekly charter market, which has been going 5-6 weeks now, and don't know if anyone wants to share their thoughts on it, but I think it's been terrific in Victoria Square. Councillor Humphries.
I just want to say thank you for getting the charter market back up and running. I'm a regular visitor and know quite a few of the stall holders now, and I have to say it's a real pleasure to be able to shop there.
Yeah, I think it's every Friday. Everyone knows it's there. It's, again, builds from that basis. So I think a real big success. So thank you all involved in bringing it back. 20 John Hemming 400th anniversary. So I'll pass to Mark on this one as well.
Thank you, Chairman. There's a little bit of paperwork attached with the dispatch that went out. Basically, it's 400th anniversary year this year. John Hemming, with his connections with Shakespeare, was born in Droitwich Spa, so it's quite a prominent anniversary for the town. We have been approached by certainly an individual who was very passionate about John Hemming in interest to celebrate the anniversary appropriately and mark it appropriately. So he summarised various things. What I've put on the agenda is what we have already committed to or are in the course of doing. The actual anniversary date is later in October. So it's a year really, but significantly in October. The main parameters really for us are cost, because obviously we allocate our budgets, preset time in January. This wasn't marked as a major anniversary at that time, so it's got to be proportionate with what we do with other cost centres and things that the Town Council is working on. But so far we've done scope and options being investigated with St Peter's Church, so that's for a appropriate plaque, because that's where the connection is from really. I've spoken to the chaplain, Reverend Laura Handy, and she is facilitating really the planning process for the church, because it's quite detailed as to what functions you need, but she's confident that she can support us with that. That will enable us then to do the plaque and then get that in place later in the year. We've edited and updated all the reference material, so that's published by the Heritage Centre and Museum, so that's paper-based and website content. That's already been done for the year, so that's more comprehensive, and it does highlight and draw attention to the anniversary year. Thirdly, we have a connection now established, so it's published 3 and 4 here, C and D, with the Shakespeare Trust at Stratford. So we've got a dedicated contact there that can hopefully support the museum with possibly loaning some archive material to really do a pop-up display around the actual anniversary period in October. And we've got a copy, we've purchased a copy for our collection of the first folio. It's a sizable document, if anybody's interested, it's about that thick, but it's a copy of all the plays, including the ones that John Hemming worked with Shakespeare on. So it's a significant thing for the collection, and that will be on display at certain times or by appointment as well. So we've done quite a lot. The suggestions from Mr. Armstrong are included with the dispatch that went out. There are a lot of those, but I think what we are looking to do is to support him really with publicity and ideas like that, and working with other groups as well, in addition to the things that we've already committed to.
And I think if there's any other groups in Droitwich that want to come forward with ideas that they can take on to support the anniversary, that would be good. Councillor Phillips.
Yeah, thank you. I've just heard by one of my mayoral duties about the Norbury Theatre as well.
Yes, they've got a performance of Midsummer Night's Dream on the, I think it's the 18th of July. Katie's got the publicity today. Again, we will help push that out.
That's very good.
Yeah,
Be interesting.
it's a theatre company that's performing there, and they've actually asked for the mayor to be
Yeah,
invited
for the
as
youth.
well.
Very good. Councillor Davidson.
Chair, just like Shakespeare, I think his name's spelled in various different ways.
Yes.
And there's still Hemmings in Droitwich, I believe. Maybe they could get involved somehow.
We urge the Hemmings to get involved. As the old name is probably Hemming. Yeah.
I would call it Hemming.
That's the question.
Yeah, no, that could be true. And it really is significant, that John Hemming was from Droitwich, because if I understand rightly, his folio was the first time that Shakespeare, and Henry was the only one he did with it, and another individual, didn't he? But it was the first time that Shakespeare was documented, the first time it was written. So possibly Shakespeare wouldn't be known as he is today without that folio having been created, and the plays that he wrote. So really, really important, and something that we should be proud to respect from our history of the town.
Shows the importance of good communication and good print.
Should have created a bit of Shakespeare teaching, shouldn't I?
To be or not to be, Richard.
I've got neither a borrow nor a lend to do. That's excellent. So moving on, 21, Rotary Club Droitwich. And you'll see from the attached documentation from our alderman that the Rotary Club have made a request that we can store and celebrate some of their key historical factors. You can see the report here, and quite correctly explains that we've got limited space within our museum, but the recommendation is that we do feature it on a rolling forward plan. So we want to recognise the Rotary Club and the work that they've done within the town, but we can't keep kind of permanent place for it within the museum, but we're happy to store it and position it on a forward plan on a regular basis. Want to add anything?
I think with that one, Chairman, really, if the committee are understanding of that, as this is a heritage manager's recommendation as well, but under accreditation criteria, we can't accommodate that volume of material. But we'd like to be able to come to a compromise situation to do temporary exhibitions, and I'll speak to Edgar and the Rotary people about that.
Yeah, I think that's a good balance on things. Are we all happy with that? Yeah. 22, this is really important, and I'm pleased that the town council is getting involved in supporting it. Holocaust Memorial Day, and I'd like to thank Councillor Val Humphries for bringing it forward, and I'll let you speak if you want on it.
Yes, please. I've got a couple of updates for you, and some requests for help as well. So, this next year, Holocaust Memorial Day falls on a Saturday. I know that the Worcester event is taking place on the Monday. So in discussion with a couple of people who've been involved in that previously, we would suggest that we have our event on the Friday morning. If we have it on Saturday, it will exclude some members of the Jewish community. And so we very much like to involve schools. I think the education aspect of this is one of the things that I'm really, really keen to get across. So I think with the committee's approval, I think we should go for Friday the 26th. Also, just to let you know that I've secured the support of Jeff and Yvonne Stollard, who have both, they're currently involved in helping to organise the Worcester event, and have both previously organised the Bromsgrove event as well. They have contacts with speakers, which are quite hard to get these days, and it's increasingly harder to get a Holocaust survivor speaker because of their age now. We are hoping to secure one of the people that lives within the West Midlands, so fingers crossed that goes ahead. I do have a plan B and a plan C though, so I'm not going to be caught out by anything there. The other thing that I need your help with, as well as people to come forward to help with the organisation of this, is we're trying to find a suitable venue. We're expecting, if it's anything like the first one that Bromsgrove organised, they had 200 people. So I'm slightly nervous about the venue that we should use. We have approached the high school. I've had no response yet. So if anyone has any contacts or any suggestions of where we could hold an event that would be easy for people to get to and able to cater for somewhere in the region of around 100 people, I'd be grateful to hear any suggestions, please. 6 months is really not a long time to organise this. Realistically, with Christmas in between, we only have 6 months, and it's quite a big event to organise. So I need all the help I could get, to be honest. And also, we will need a small budget for this because any speaker will need travel expenses. We also would expect to provide just some kind of tea, coffee, and maybe some biscuits. So we're not talking a lot of money. And again, it's mainly expenses that speakers would want, and we're trying to find someone who's relatively local. But we will need a small budget. And when I have a better idea of what we will need, I'm happy to put forward a proposal for a future meeting to agree that budget. But it won't. We'll try and keep costs to a minimum.
Okay, thank you very much. It sounds a terrific activity to take on. Friday the 26th in the morning. Have you tried the Norbury? Because that seems like the perfect place.
That's a thought. I'll have a chat to the Norbury Theatre and see what we suggest. But the only issue with that is access, really, for some people. Because although it is accessible, it's not the best access, really.
And are we looking at forming a subgroup to support it? Is that what you would like to see?
I would like to see that, yes, please. What I don't want to end up is sort of like a last minute panic with this. And to be honest, this is the biggest thing I've organised for a long time. So I need all the help I can get.
Yeah, so if anybody would like to go on a subgroup to support the planning for the Holocaust Memorial Day.
Richard, excuse me, I think somebody mentioned it to me as a mayoral duty.
Yes, that would.
Right?
Yes, it would be. Yes.
Okay. I was just hoping I wasn't imagining that.
No. We would hope that you would be there.
Of course.
So the mayor as ex officio would be on any working group anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on it anyway. Okay.
Pardon?
You were on it anyway. Yeah, no,
I know.
you had no
I was
say.
just confirming, Richard.
It's very good you step forward as well. As
Away
we
goes.
respect our mayor
The
for
show
doing.
must go on.
Absolutely.
I'm happy to support it as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Is it something we could open to all members? I know there's a good number here, but if we did
Irrespective of the committees, it doesn't matter.
yeah, so if we did a note out just to
Yeah.
encourage take up, and please think about it and join in. It's important for the town.
I'd also be happy to open it up to non-council members as well. If you know somebody who maybe has some interest in this particular topic, I will be including in the meetings Jeff and Yvonne, because they've got a lot of experience of organising this and a lot of contacts. So I'll make the most of the people that are available. So if anyone knows anybody who they think might be interested, please let me know.
Very good.
So that proposal just about then, Chairman. So it's working group delegation comprising of Councillor Al Humphreys, yourself, Mayor as ex officio, with a note of all the members and any other interested parties. So if we can propose second that. All in
Okay,
favour?
so I'm happy to propose that we establish a subgroup. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Fellows, thank you. All in favour?
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then we can advise on meeting dates and the provisional costing in due course.
Brilliant, very good, thank you. Excellent. 23, forward notice of D-Day 80. So we've been advised that there will be a respectful honour of D-Day 80 in June 2024. So we will start looking at activities in support of that.
I think just to add on that one, Chairman, that will be a nationwide anniversary, similar to the Beacon arrangement for the Jubilee in June last year, because it's come from the Pageantry Office, Buckingham Palace.
Right.
So that's why I've had a year's forward notice. It will be quite a big thing, but it'll be the 80th.
Okay, I know the British Legion and others are focusing on it soon as well. 24 underpass public art murals. Hopefully you've all seen some of the great artwork that's gone on in the underpasses. All 7 have now been completed. It's superb, I believe. And I'd like to thank all the community groups involved and all the organisers of it. Unfortunately, there's been some antisocial activity on some of them, which I know the town clerk has in hand. Don't know if you want to talk further on that at all, Mark.
I would say, Chairman, I think some of these matters can be raised with Sergeant Catherine Atkinson for her updated full council next week, because it's disappointing we've had these onwards the way underpasses targeted over the last couple of weeks with graffiti, just as it's been finished. But it's not the only incident. The matter at Cockpit that you referred to earlier, there's quite a lot of antisocial. And I've also put on the agenda that's going out to full council tomorrow about reprioritising the Safer Neighbourhoods Team charter. So the council can choose 3 items to select as priorities for local policing. That was deferred because of the election from April. So I think it will be a good opportunity to talk about that a little bit next week with the sergeant here, and then we can resolve what the further 3 areas are. We can choose 3. There's quite a lot of different ones. Antisocial is one you may want to think about.
Others.
Yeah.
So with Sergeant Kent, we were determining as a town council what the 3 priorities we believe they should be, but we'll revisit that with Councillor Atkinson when she attends full council next Monday. Just before I finish, just want to, this isn't on the agenda, so sorry about that, but you will have all seen a note from Mark earlier, I think, about the Heritage Centre. And I just want to read this out about someone's view of our Heritage Centre. So, wow, apologies to other information centres, but for us, we feel this is the best ever visited. Set in an attractive historic building with character, it's well laid out, clean and welcoming. The staff are friendly, helpful and interested. There is the best range of leaflets on both local and national places of interest, as well as special interest parks. The Heritage Park adds character and a pleasant stay, capturing local interest. Well worth popping in. Feels more like a tourist information centre used to be. 5 stars, thank you. So I'd just like to say well done to our Heritage Centre and all the volunteers and the staff in what they do, because if it gets that kind of feedback and we know it, it's just great that others see that as well. So well done from, I think, council members to the Heritage team.
Can we buy them all a cream cake each? Do you think our cost would be able to?
If we dip into our pockets.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Thank you for bearing with me.
Okay, and now another meeting. Welcome to this meeting of the Resources Committee. First one of the new session. And to begin with, could I have apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chairman. Councillors Chris and Eric Boundary, Councillor Seaton, Councillor Grady, Councillor Hopkins and Councillor Morris.
Thank you very much. Do we have any declarations of interest in this meeting, please? No? Item 3 then, to note the membership and chairmanship of the committee as determined at the annual council meeting. And also to confirm the correct record of the minutes of the meeting on the 3rd of April. Could I have a proposal for those? If we've got somebody. Yeah, Councillor Duffy, and a second.
Proposed.
Thank you. All in favour, please. Okay, duly done. And now we're on item 5, the year-end auditor's visit. And obviously, this is for information. I don't know if you'd like to comment on this one as well.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. The auditor attended on the 18th of May. It comes just for new members. Our internal auditor visits twice a year, usually around Christmas time, and then around year end, so financial year end around April. So Kevin came, we reported on the interim visit at a previous meeting that he came around Christmas. And then the year end one, he does an assurance paper, is the governance statement. That forms part of the accounts that go off. They're resolved as part of council next week and looks at various other procedures. It's quite comprehensive what he does. It's all in the attachments that went out. We were pleased with the report. There was no major findings, just observations, because procedures do change each year. It's new things that he looks at. So that's all attached. And then the accounts, as I say, and the assurance statement will be presented to council again next week.
Thank you, Mark. Yes, again, very pleasing to see a satisfactory outcome there. And there's a lot of hard work goes on behind the scenes to get things right. Item 6 then, the PEEP programme. And I won't read all of it, but section A for information for noting it. And for the benefit of new members, that council entered this scheme, and unfortunately we did all our bit, but unfortunately we weren't properly supported, in my opinion, by the county council on this one, who were administering the scheme. And so they have put out a survey request, and I don't know if we've given them the chapter and verse on that one, Mark.
I think, Chairman, with this, the PEEP programme has drawn council's attention to the benefits of LED, solar and green energy and being responsible, but the process was quite difficult at times. And you mentioned the county council. I think part of the failings were the actual service providers commissioned by
subcontractors, yes,
which we fed back in a respectful way. The other disappointment was we were expecting 40% funding for the LED, and actually it was a reduced rate, an intervention rate, because of the calculations on the savings were pre-energy sector fluctuations, really. That was the explanation, but it still came in at 26.5, but it seemed quite a long process to get that 26.5% back. But having said that, we've got LED now in both buildings. So
yeah. It's all's well, ends well.
yeah.
Having, I think we'll have to do the quotes at meetings on this one. Right. Question?
Yeah, I mean, are we going to discuss the PEEP reports anymore at this point? It's just obviously there was the information about the solar that Mark obviously provided.
Yeah.
Is that on the horizon to be done or looked at in more detail?
It was taken to the Resources Committee around January time, December, January time when we received it. So we did a full feasibility on both buildings for solar based on the PEEP. And it was thought on that feasibility to be out of scope at this time.
Right. Will that be revisited at any time?
It can be brought back to council to revisit it in due course.
Which is obviously we've had obviously massive increases in energy bills. I think there's scope. I think the problem with those, it doesn't give enough information on the quotations that you sort of had provided.
Yeah.
And obviously there is options to make better utilisation of the solar, because the problem obviously with the report, it was showing that a very small utilisation rate of the amount that's produced. Hence why there was like a 19 and 22 year payback. But with some thought, we could improve on that, and we could look at how we could make the best of it for the community, really.
Certainly.
I mean, just if I could just have you indulge for a little while. For example, I had a resident contact us just the other day, about a week ago, who is obviously a very keen cyclist. There is a Sustrans e-charging network map now that's up and running in order to sort of promote cycling. As you're possibly aware, e-bikes especially become very popular with the sort of more elderly people, because obviously they can use them a lot more, and when they get tired, the e-bike itself can do a lot more of the work, etc. So what they want to do is the town to look at introducing that, and I think it's obviously a great idea because we could potentially make use of cycling tourism, as well as help local residents with more cycling. Obviously that ties into if we've got excess solar being poured out from the heritage building of the community centre, and when you start looking at combining it with the fantastic cycling store that we have in the Lido Park, which is the only true sort of sustainable development we have in the town, which is fantastic. We could be making a lot more use of that. So yeah, I would definitely would like us to have more discussion around that in the future. If that's possible.
Well, probably recommend Chairman then is Councillor Franks to meet with you. And me.
Yes.
And there's quite a few technicalities with the solar study that we had done, because it was with the eligibility window for peak funding. We were subject to quite a tight deadline with that. We got it for the LED, but the council had to make an informed decision on the information that we had on solar at that time. That peak window has now gone, so we'll be looking at other sources of funding. But I can go through in detail with you the solar studies that we had. The issues, battery storage was another one.
Yes.
Yeah, no,
things
exactly.
like that.
Yeah. It's someone who's got solar themselves with a bit of battery storage, because we can big difference and we can utilise so much more.
That was something I was going to refer to anyway. We were disappointed that it wasn't a battery element, because obviously with a home installation, you can reschedule your day and just put washing machines, dishwashers, whatever, on in the day rather than the evening, to make with it so you're not actually needing battery storage, you're using the power that's being generated. But obviously, in our situation, a battery storage would be far more significant. But again, we were disappointed that that wasn't included in the original work. So I think it's certainly, I quite agree, we need to revisit that. And if you'd like to come on board with that, then that would be very useful.
Yeah, I'll evaluate it.
Organise something outside offline, obviously.
Thanks, Jim.
Great, thank you. Any other comments on that one? Okay then, number 7, describe accounting system.
Yes, Chairman, thank you. There is a costing with that. It's the suggestion to add the option to our existing accounting system, which is Scribe, to do automated invoicing. So that's for the community hall hirers and also the allotments. We've got over 100 allotments on 4 sites, so it would be a significant saving if we could do them digitally, the invoices. So really, it was to consider doing that, and if it's agreeable, we can just make that happen.
Yeah, are we looking for that?
Please, yeah.
Well, I mean, I think it's getting very sensible that we become a little bit more mechanised to get all these, and I think for the new people too, I don't know if you appreciate just how much actually the town council does do with 2 parks, 2 buildings, allotments, all these other matters. So anything we can do to help. So I'm very happy to propose that from the chair. Look for a seconder, please. Neil, thank you for seconding. All those in favour? Thank you. Good. Item 8 then, investment policy review and options. This is just looking after our money, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, yeah. Fortunately, we are in a position that we do have healthy reserves for the town council. Part of that was being frugal during the COVID time, particularly. We managed to offset against the income streams. Things like the community hall were closed on the Heritage Centre for a while. So that had no adverse effect, and we have managed to build our reserves up. It is noted by the internal auditor as well. And what his recommendation is to look at what we call the CCLA, so the Council Association's deposit fund. With interest rates now improving through the Bank of England, there is the option for us to get a reasonable return on instant access. It's completely no risk. So that is probably one fund that we would like to look at. With it being a new council, his agreement as well, and as well as suggestion, is that we considered putting any of the reserve funds into a deposit fund. We defer that until around the preset budgeting stage, so we'll be talking December and January for that. That makes sense because it's a new administration. We've got several projects that are in course or due to come back, so it would be sensible for us to have 6 months just to embed those and then resolve as part of the budgeting that we put X amount in the CCLA or an equivalent at that time. Doesn't tie it up, but it just means that we've got a small amount of interest coming in there.
Great. In fact, just a couple of comments I'd like to make on that one. First of all, just again to thank our town clerk and staff for the great job they do looking after everything, that we are in a healthy position despite adverse things beyond our control. And also, I'm pleased that we're talking cautious moves because a certain district council not a million miles away from here thought the Icelandic bank was a good investment. But okay, it's probably a best decision on the day, and I accept that. It's just nice that we're going the right way. But Lily, want to ask anything on that one?
I think we can discuss it in detail at the time of the budget session.
Yeah.
Preset.
So it'll come up again anyway.
Yeah, I would like to know a lot more about sort of the way money's handled in investments, etc. So I can't make a real informed decision right now.
No. Well, we're not asking you to today, so, but yes, you're quite right. Okay, then item 9, options for boiler replacement. On this one,
Again,
needs to be noted.
just summarise that, Chairman. So the boiler for St Richard's House, so for this building, is 45 years old, gas boiler. So it doesn't really owe us anything. It's not particularly efficient. It is detailed in the PEEP surveys, but it was not part of the scope for the PEEP funding. So what this council resolved in February, once through the resources, is to look at replacing that boiler because it's seen that we can get considerable efficiencies on energy consumption by doing that. On top of that, we have obligations for this public building, so with tenants, with volunteers, with public visiting, that the heating, particularly in the winter, needs to be efficient and working properly. So what we're looking for is a conventional boiler based on some of the work that we did on PEEP that looked at other sources like heat pumps. And the resolution was to do that change subject to options, and so it would come under procurement because I think it would be over the threshold of 25k. So what we're asking for at this meeting is delegation of a working group of 2 or 3 people. I've already got a contractor looking at different providers for us, so he should be able to collate those for us, that we've got 3 options to bring to council, probably in September. But there is a degree of work that we would like the working group to do during the summer, so I'm talking July, second half of July, August and September. That would enable us to make a decision as to the change and the spec and the cost, probably September, and get the work done before there's that provision for heating later in the year.
Midwinter is not a good time to change boiler.
The other advantage we've had is you'll see that a lot of the fittings in this building are imperial gauge, so it would be a massive undertaking to change all the valves, pipework, radiators. There's over 100 radiators in this building alone. We don't need to do that because they are sound, and we had isolation valves converting to metric fitted to the boiler apparatus approximately 24 months ago. Yeah. So really we can just shut it off and then put a new boiler in. It wouldn't compromise any of these fittings. So that saving's already been made.
Yeah, and obviously whilst we will go through the proper procurement process in the proper professional way. I'm very pleased that in the past we've had good support from a very local supplier.
So the decision really, Chairman, was to consider a delegation, and I would suggest perhaps 3 or 4 councillors.
Councillor Duffy.
I'd be quite happy to join the delegation.
Okay, and I'd be happy to be involved as an engineer, so Any other volunteers?
What kind of times would the sort of working group be meeting?
Flexible really, it can be in the day or it can be an evening.
Yeah,
We can make it fit for the availability.
I mean, yeah, definitely want to be involved if I can, if it can be on evenings, because obviously just the day jobs.
Probably be a couple of meetings
Yeah.
during August, really, just to get into the real detail, like we did on the Christmas lights one. Really.
But I have got some holidays in August, but that's what most people would say.
Or we can get the diaries there.
Yeah.
I'm sure. Good. Well, I think we said about 3, and that's a workable number. If everybody's happy with that.
Yeah, so just all in favour.
Yeah. Yes. Sorry. I propose we do that. Then can I have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor Duffy. And all in favour, please.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Item 10 then. Provision of a new network server. Again, this is all the modern era in which we find ourselves.
Yeah. So just to explain on this one, Chairman, it's below procurement, it's well below 25,000, 7,500. The reason we're being recommended to change the server is it's reaching end of life and also operational warranty support. That expires in October. So for the same reason, it would be good for us to move on this. Now, we are protected on backup, of course, with the data, but I would prefer if we could do this during the summer. Our commissioned consultant is TCS Computer Solutions, with no reason to doubt their professional advice on this. So if members are happy, we can move it.
Again, I think it's just a no-brainer, really. Again, I'm very happy to propose that.
Well, can I just make a comment? Sorry, I'm not going to pretend I'm an IT professional, but I do know a little bit about computers, and it seems a very beefy spec for a server for quite a small office team. I am quite surprised by 64 gigabytes of RAM. I understand a little bit about these things, and I know you need a little bit more RAM when it comes to servers, but it seems quite a beefy spec, even if you're expecting it to last another 10 years. Is there no alternative sort of?
I'll just comment on that one, and I'm trying to remember whose law it was about the amount of computing power doubles every.
Well, it's Moore's law, but it's long gone now.
Thank you, yes. Well, all right, but the same principle still applies. We're having something for the next few years.
Not these days. It's all it's all changed now.
I will say, as not a qualified expert, but someone who delves quite deeply into computers, 64 gigs is fairly often standard for servers. Does it host our websites as well? Those tend to be the much more server consumptive parts.
The other relevant
bit. High visitor rates. I mean, the 64 gigs of RAM for a website would be somewhat more, not quite Amazon, but it would be a much larger website than the town council website.
Well,
I'm just saying if there was an alternative, if we could get an alternative.
But again, I think we are looking at very much a similar specification to the existing one. It's just simply that the software and hardware becomes obsolescent. So we're not really actually, we're not doubling our capacity or something. We're really just replacing like for like, yeah.
RAM wants to be quite a cheap component as components go. I think the power supply is the only bit that's usually cheaper than RAM.
Well, it's not just about the RAM, it's sort of general general spec itself is 4 times 900 gigabytes is massive. Even in rate 10. But anyway, if you are happy with it, fine. But I was just trying to save you some money.
I appreciate your comment.
You could have saved a few thousand yourself.
Yes, we do appreciate the comment.
I'll comment on it with them. I'll ask a question, but it is based on like for like.
I did do a quick check on sort of Google, and the prices for 32 gig RAM, not quite as big a beefy spec, is down to about 3,000 or 4,000. I just thought that it might be worth looking at an alternative price and spec if possible.
A valid point, but also we do need to look at the service we receive from the particular.
Well, yeah, that was the other comment I had about. There was I didn't say anything about warranty. How long is it guaranteed for?
I'll ask a question. Yeah.
Okay.
So please, so subject to obviously asking the question regarding the capacity and the guaranteed timescale to
Yeah.
supply to proceed.
So, okay, then, yes, again, I'd like to propose that we proceed, subject to those queries, and obviously I know they'll be properly looked into.
Thanks, Chair.
We can update those at the next meeting
Yeah.
as well.
And if I could have a seconder, please. Okay, I'm over there. All in favour? Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. Item 11 then, yes. Regular payments review.
Just to explain on this one, Chairman, yeah. Periodically, we do present all our payments. That includes, for the main part, the direct debits and standing orders. So obviously, checks and remittances are presented at regularly at council meetings for authorisation. But there are a lot of other regular payments, standing orders, direct debits. So every so often at intervals, and you can see I've outlined those on the agenda, they are printed off from our account system and presented for information. If anybody's got any queries or wants to discuss them, it's absolutely fine. So it covers everything from utilities, salaries.
Did anyone want to raise anything on those? Or obviously, if something comes to light, you can always ask offline.
Yeah.
You know, it's all there.
They are loaded onto the website as well, these summaries now.
So anyone in the town can see them if they want and have a look at them. Okay. Fine, that's just for noting.
That's for noting, yeah.
So item 12 then, accounts for payments as per the list.
There's two lists, Chairman.
Oh, sorry, yes.
There's a smaller list which was of the last administration, so they were final ones. We are able to do that. They were essential for business. And then there is the backlog of payments with the elections to bring us back up to date.
Okay.
And they're all on the list.
So I'm going to take one block.
You take one block, as long as nobody's got any.
Yeah, as long as, well, first of all, any questions? No. Again, if no one has the objection, I'll take those on block. Can I have a proposal, please? Thank you. And a seconder? Okay. Thank you, Matt. All in favour, please?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and there we go.
Great. Thank you.
That, I was